Should work. Yep, I think so. There we go. Right. In fact, just leave that as it. Yeah. We're all on. I'll just set my phone off and get the audio. Airplane mode. Yep, cool. All right.
Yep.
How are we looking? We're good?
Good.
Yeah. All right, let's crack on. Graeme Carrick, welcome to Liverpool.
Thank you.
Good to have you on board. It's probably the warmest welcome that you've ever had in this city, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
The last time you were here, you made the national press, was that right?
What was that?
At the Anfield Road.
Anfield Road.
With your hood up.
With your hood up, yeah.
So next to your hood there. Bit of a warm welcome today, anyway. And when you gave us a shout the other day, I thought, what better way to spend a Thursday afternoon than getting you around here and chatting about football and coaching and youth development for a couple of hours. So thanks for the invite.
Thanks for having me, especially in the bunker. Finally made it into there.
Honoured to have you. And there are, I think the plan of attack today is we're going to talk about specifically youth development and the England DNA youth development phase, what your role in that. But for those who don't know yet, if you just give us a kind of quick intro, who you are, what you do in the day job and beyond.
Cool. Yeah, Graeme Carrick. I've worked at the FA for 12 years now, which is scary.
Go and watch.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah, I've sort of got two roles at the moment. So day job, I guess, is as a regional coach mentor in the North East in Yorkshire. So that is managing a team of mentors across the region who go on to work with grassroots clubs and coaches to support them. So yeah, I've been doing that 5 years, and about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, I got asked to lead the Youth Development Phase DNA project, which is to follow on from Pete Sturgis's work in the foundation phase and connect with the national teams just around some of our, at the FA, some of our beliefs and considerations around coaching in this age phase. So sort of been doing two roles really for
2 in 1.
Yeah, for a couple of years, which is great. So hopefully got a decent grasp with grassroots football in terms of coaching grassroots, playing grassroots, and over the last 12 years worked primarily in grassroots football in different ways, in different settings and in different roles. So yeah, I guess that's out of football, I coach out of the day job, coach.
You still doing the university team?
Yeah, coach Durham Uni when I can get there, when I can balance it with work. So yeah, and dip into the local grassroots club and do bits and bobs around it as we do, as well as trying to have a life out of football as well.
What is that? Yeah.
But yeah, so now I just obviously love the game, love coaching, love trying to help coaches. So yeah, it's not a job really, is it? It's a passion. So really fortunate to be in a position to be able to do it.
Good. And I know we've been threatening to do this conversation for a couple of years now, haven't we? So it's nice to finally bring it all together. And there's two big events going on in Liverpool tonight. There's Take That at Anfield, and then there's Pete Sturgis at Liverpool County FA. So we've waved to Take That.
You've definitely got the right start. Yeah.
To go and see Pete. And terrible planning on our behalf because we've organised it on the same night as England play in the Nations League semi-final, but hopefully catch the second half. So you went to see Pete last night in Lancs.
Yeah, that's right.
And Pete is coming to Liverpool tonight to deliver his part 2 of his roadshow. He's probably clocked enough miles to circumnavigate the world by now.
Yeah. He's definitely making it harder for me to follow that.
So what's in store? What did you see last night? What have we got in store for tonight? Because I know we're both going to go along, and I think this fairly packed house.
Yeah.
Coming tonight.
What did we see last night? Seen Pete weave his magic with children in sport and football. I don't want to steal too much of his thunder for tonight, but I guess the importance of working with children in a way which is most appropriate to them at the stage they're at and the age they're at, and connecting to them with them in a way that the experience they get is what they need to develop a real love of the ball, of the game. And the importance of the environment around that is crucial. And Pete's a master of that. It really is.
I haven't seen many coaches in my life that have I describe it as a magnetism.
Yeah.
When to people that haven't seen him work before, he's infectious, and he has just this way about him that it's almost hypnotic. It's a joy. It's an absolute, like you say, a master of his craft, and it's a joy to watch. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him work again tonight.
It's quite ironic in a way. We talk about when I started. I joined the FA as a skills coach back in 2007, and Pete actually did my interview.
Right.
So he was on the panel on the practical element of that interview. So that was the first time I met Pete. And even then at the interview, I was almost embarrassed because I was meant to be coaching the kids, and he had a better connection with the kids, even though he was miles away and there to observe me coach. And he knew the kids' names before me, and he had obviously I was a real novice at that point, and just starting out myself really as a coach on reflection. But even that, seeing Pete's connection with the kids that day 12 years ago when he wasn't actually even coaching was just amazing. And then he's been one of the biggest influences on me since that point.
Likewise.
I've been really fortunate to see him. Obviously seen him last night, but probably seen him 100 times.
Likewise. Yeah, you always pick up something new.
I always pick up something new, and just seeing that it's not a one-off. So you see him I've seen him in different settings with different groups of kids, different ages of kids, and I've seen him in school environment. I've seen him in grassroots clubs. I've seen him last night doing coach education. I've seen him on the Advanced Youth Award with academy players. And there's some things specific to the kids that he coaches and specific to the setting that he coaches in. But then there's some transferable good principles that just work because he's, regardless of what setting he's coaching in, he's working with kids. And all the kids are different. But
so what would those principles be then?
I think just the idea of understanding where they're at as kids, who are they as kids, working from that point first. What types of things might they want from the experience? What makes it a memorable experience for the kids? The importance of connection, and all the things to really subtly, sometimes obviously, but sometimes subtly create an environment for learning and for enjoyment, and then carefully craft and drip the technical detail, if you want to call it, into that environment. Sometimes quite hidden, so it's not necessarily like stop, stand still, and that type of it's not as obvious to see, but it's always in there. And so there's this thing of understanding them as kids, but also as young people, and just developing them and creating an environment that the kids can just thrive. And so yeah, there's so much in that. And like I say, whether they're playing football for the first time or they're in an academy and they've relatively experienced that age and they've had a lot of football experiences by the age of 10 or 11, then yeah, there's some transferable things, like you say, around that.
There's something you said before about just the names. I've never seen anybody, well, Ben Bartlett is also a master at it, but just working with a brand new group and instantly knowing 14 children's names and using it.
Yeah.
And I remember working in, as many of us did, coaching out in the States on the camps, and I got quite good at it out there because you had to.
Because you have to.
Yeah, but then I guess I've slipped on that, but he's a real master of that, and you can see the response that he gets back from the children because it's their identity, isn't it? It's like and I think you could easily toss it off and flippantly as it's just learning people's names, but it means a lot more.
Yeah, and it is more than that.
Yeah, it's a lot more.
Yeah, with Pete, and I think two things that really stand out are he's got such a care for working with the kids, and he's getting to know the kids to get to know them, and so that he can help them and help them improve and make them feel comfortable around him. And there's such a degree of care for all the kids who he coaches. It's really authentic, and it's there every time. And that coupled with a real sort of belief in the kids and what the kids are capable of, and all that together, and getting to know their names are part of that. And it's a really important part of that to connect with the kids. But it's all important to getting to know them to help sort of set them free, help help them explore and do things that. And often when you see by the end of Pete's sessions, as was the case last night, the kids are doing things that they haven't done before, that the coaches haven't seen the kids do before. And that even if you see them, some people might not think would be possible when you see them at the start. Just with some careful and good coaching, the transformation of the kids is huge.
I saw something that you put on Twitter last night about, was it something around making the kids believe in themselves, or believe that what's possible?
Yeah, make them
reframe
what they see is possible. There were some concrete examples last night of just by encouraging, I guess, and challenging the kids to think differently and behave differently in terms of as kids, but also football wise in terms of staying on the ball to try and be more positive, if that's a word, and to be more exciting with the ball. All of a sudden the possibilities change. So it's not a case of just throwing a ball in and letting the kids go and work it all out. That is part of it, but it's also guiding them and almost pushing them in the direction that they're capable of more if we nudge them in the right way at the right time.
Was there any specific examples last night then that stick out?
Yeah, so there's a boy called Harry who was at the start. He was doing fine. He was doing well in the group, but he was just releasing the ball probably too early, if you like. Maybe you wouldn't think that at the time, but then through encouragement to stay on the ball and turn and find ways to play forward and stay on the ball to sort of progress forward, all of a sudden the possibilities for him changed. So he was beating players, he was receiving mark and turning, all of a sudden breaking lines, and he's setting goals up and scoring goals. So just by the encouragement and the coaching around how to do it, when to do it, and setting him free to try and experiment with it, all of a sudden so he was already doing really well in the session, but it just went to sort of a new level in terms of the possibilities and things that had led to. So by staying on the ball a bit longer and by taking players out of the game, then the pictures, then the next decisions change and were better. So you're setting goals up where at first you was getting it, staying on a little bit and then releasing it backwards. Or so just by the way Pete framed it and through the session, just gradually.
And then what were they, under 10s?
I'm not sure the actual age, but 9s, 10s.
9s, 10s, yeah. And so you said staying on the ball there, and that's something. Do you think that is something that culturally in this country we're still a bit hesitant to encourage?
Yeah, I think so, and I think it's crucial. But what's important is that we understand the reasoning behind it. So staying on the ball is a phrase which Pete uses a lot, and it's still important all the way through the pathway. It's still important in 12 to 16 age group. And what's really, we're not trying to just develop ball greedy players or just dribblers. What we are trying to say, especially in the foundation phase first, is for kids to explore the possibilities and have the chance to practice in different ways and give them the sort of help arm them with the skill set to be able to stay on the ball. So it might be that they dribble to beat somebody, it might be the dribble away from pressure, it might be that they stay on the ball whilst they're under pressure. But the whole idea really for me is that you can control the situation, that the kids can be in control of the situation. So when the ball comes and they're on the ball, they play the game on their terms. So even if they've got pressure, then that's fine. They can just either go through the pressure or play or move away from the pressure. But it's about playing on their terms and not just being anxious if the ball comes and got to get rid of it. So it's not just about dribbling, but even if they go to then pass and share the ball with a teammate, then they do it on their terms, so the timing's right, and it's not because they've got to get anxious and they've got to get rid of it. So by staying on the ball, it helps them if they've got the capability of staying on the ball and they've got the skill set. Then as they get better at it, the attention span can sort of look wider and a better place to then share the ball with teammates.
Yeah, and that's the kind of counterintuitive nature of it, is that from my experience, and I've certainly been guilty of this previous teams and players that I've coached, is this rush to produce passing football, and especially at the young age. But actually, if you want that football, you're going to have to make sure that they're comfortable individually on the ball and they can stay on the ball in the first place.
Yeah.
So we're almost putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, and it's just about making so the kids can make better choices, not just in terms of what pass, but when to play the pass, when to release the ball. So if we've got a 2v1, it might be that the best decision is to try and draw the defender towards them and pass to the teammate. But if they pass it too early, then it'll either get cut out or the receiving player won't be in a position to beat the defender.
Or the player on the ball potentially has lost that opportunity to make that decision.
Yeah, so maybe by staying on the ball, you suck the defender towards you to then release the pass at a better time. So it's not saying it's almost part of the same. It's not like we see sometimes as all these things are separate, but by being in control, then you can make better decisions. And one of the key things around making decisions is timing. So if you're going to play a pass to a teammate, timing's crucial. It's one of the fundamental things, and it's really hard to get right.
Timing of what?
Timing of the pass, so that you don't play it too soon. So if you just get the ball and you just get rid of it, might not be the timing of that might not be right. So you might stay on the ball to like you say, you might wait for a defender to move and then play the pass, and it takes the defender out of the game. Or if you just pass it, and the defenders don't move, no one moves. You don't actually penetrate or break any lines, but actually you might just stay on the ball. And it might be that you don't beat anyone, but you might just stay on the ball for a bit, and the picture might change. So then, as a defender comes, or you might, there's so many different, gives you so many different possibilities. If you can stay on the ball, then you can choose when to release it. It might be actually that you release it quickly because it's the right thing for that situation, but it's not because you're scared and you're anxious and you just want to feel you've got to get rid of it. So you've got to just get rid of the ball. So by having the skills to stay on the ball, it's always in relation to the situation. That's why practicing the small sided games is really important.
Well, it takes a brave coach to encourage your players to stay on the ball, right?
Yeah, well, there'll be some mistakes and I'll get it wrong at times.
Yeah, I mean,
a lot of the time. So yeah, I guess brave, but in some, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. But sometimes it's not brave. I just think if we're not doing that, what are we doing?
Well,
what we're doing, and I get sometimes it might be if the kids are just learning it, it might be that, especially in matches, you don't ask them to do it all the time, and you gradually help build it up. It's not a case of exposing kids so they can't have success, but just trying to think about reframing it so people don't see what we want them to see is possession being a positive thing, that they enjoy having the ball, they can do some with the ball when they've got it, and try to help them do more with the ball and make better choices, or give them more possibilities to make choices as they get older and grown, regardless of what system they'll play in or what position they'll play. That they've got this sort of grounding that they can control the situation by being comfortable with the ball.
And there's a difference between being comfortable in the ball in my own area, dribbling in and out of some cones, than being uncomfortable on the ball when the ball's under threat.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I've got to take, physical load from another player.
Yeah.
I've got to manipulate the ball and the body in different ways to look after that thing.
Yeah. And sometimes people question staying on the ball idea in the foundation phase because they say it takes away some decision making, but there's some real decision making in that, in terms of people talk tonight around when to hide the ball, when to maneuver the ball, when to reveal the ball, and that sometimes you can't dictate that. The defender, depending on the pressure, that for the kids, they've got to deal with whatever comes. But sometimes they'll be able to dictate that themselves. And ideally, what you want them to do is be able to reveal the ball in a way that they can then be positive in attacking and take players out of the game. But it might be that they have to hide the ball, wait for the right moment to then share it, or they might have to hide the ball for a bit until the moment's right to reveal it. So it's just arming them with those sort of skills, and there's some decisions around that, and they're around the individual moments. Whether if they're on the ball, if they can turn and face the defender up. So there's lots in it. But if we only do that against cones, then you don't get the chance to get a feel for that. And the other thing that kids will have, they'll have their own individual tendencies, of course, and they'll have a different relationship with the ball, I guess, in the game. So some will be more comfortable with physical contact and hide the ball more and shield it and roll defenders. Others will want to try and get away from the defenders to find little pockets of space, especially as they grow. So yeah, we just need to help the kids find what's right for them and their way, if you like, their model for them, and not expect every kid to do it the same or have the same model for everyone.
No.
Because there'll be different personalities. They'll also have different biomechanics. There's lots of differences. Everyone will be different slightly. So it's about helping them explore some of that themselves. But even some of the best passers, people like Pearl or Busquets.
Your brother.
Yeah, Michael wasn't too bad. But what they've got is we get labelled as a passer, but there's lots of things that go into being a good passer. Part of it is being comfortable that if the pass isn't on, that they can turn out and go a different way. Or if they are getting pressure, they can still take the ball. So if they're playing in international football, that if they are marked, they can take the ball. And if they might need to stay on the ball for a bit, or they might need to, they might be facing the play as a deep midfielder, and the pass isn't on. So they might just need to stay on the ball until the pass is on, and not have that anxiety to just see a pass and play it and get it back, pass. There's always a purpose and a reason behind the pass. So those skills are still as important for passers as they are for dribblers. It's just a real fundamental building block, I guess, to help prepare the players for whatever position and wherever they're going to go with their sort of future journey, I guess. And it's still really important, the 12 to 16 age.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, we're all products of our own experiences. And I think we've still got work to do to change the conversation around, what is the priority for young developing grassroots players? Do we want to push them into this kind of pass based model, which for all TV and Spanish football and being exposed to the likes of the Barcelona teams over the last 10 years is fantastic to watch. It's not children's football, and we also should, I guess, appreciate the journey that those players have come through, which, dare I say, has probably had a real priority on looking after the ball as an individual.
Yeah, absolutely,
first.
Totally. And also some of that, when we talk about we see passing teams with Iniesta, Xavi, they can deal with pressure when it comes themselves. So it might be the pass, and when they do pass, there's a reason, there's some timing. So it might be that they suck a defender in and then play the pass to take you out of the game. So although when we see passing teams, then there's always going to be elements of them as individual being in control of that situation and being able to stay on the ball and whatever that means to them. So it's I think one of the challenges is that it's really it's sort of dangerous to try and rush kids to the end product too soon. One of the things in the foundation phase is kids are going to be fascinated with the ball. The fact they've got quite a selfish model of the world, quite in it. They're their own reference is what means the most to them. So the fact they'll be fascinated with the ball in their own personal space. That's the stage they're at as kids. So it's a great opportunity to really, really get and develop staying on the ball skills at that time, knowing that as they get older, we want to then help them keep developing that, but also then make choices when they're ready to around when and how to pass the ball or share the ball or finish or whatever that might lead to. So it's absolutely sort of plant the seeds. That's going to be important for them to deal with any situation wherever they end up playing football, whatever position. So it gives them the chance to play passing football and possession football. We'll see, because often we see possession when we're talking about keeping possession, people think of passing.
Yeah.
And it's, I would say, we're not saying passing's bad. Passing's a really important part of the game, but it's when we need to, even the passer, sort of need to reframe that, where it's not about getting rid of the ball. It's about putting your teammate in a better position. And a good pass is a pass that gets there one, but allows your teammate to do the optimal sort of thing with the ball. So almost you can see when we do help them really try to understand passing, the appreciation of passes, the way to pass, the timing of the pass, where you play the pass to, they're the things that's a sort of level of care that we want the kids to have with the ball, and that comes from firstly having some real good individual skills.
Well, I've lost count of the amount of times I've had a conversation with a well-meaning, often dad, coach or parent, and it's gone. They just went past. They went past the ball. And it's like, how old are they? Under sevens, and it's like, okay, what's their favourite toy? What? What's it? Well, what? Tell me what their favourite toy is. Okay, do they share that toy? No. Well, and that's the best analogy I can come up with.
Yeah.
You know, that football and that time that they've got at football might be the best time of their week.
Yeah.
And come hell or high water, the last thing that they want to do is give that ball away, give it to somebody else. Why would I do that when I can keep it for myself? So we've got to, I guess, break out of the adult model and understand, you know, why they're there and you know, how much they love having that thing at their feet.
Yeah, and also like you said about where they're at as kids, and I think there's a couple of other things just to mention around that is say like creating space. If you're working with children, especially at the start of the foundation phase, the early stages of the foundation phase, then they're probably going to follow the ball quite a lot. There might be some that start understanding space a little bit, but space to them is it's a pretty abstract sort of concept. So we can't expect them to have that. We can't expect them to take great positions. Or some will be ready for it. We're going to help them then understand where they might go for or how they might stand to give themselves a better opportunity when the ball comes. But we can't rush. We shouldn't rush that. We don't need to rush that. They'll be fascinated with the ball, so we'll help them take the opportunity to help them develop that. And I think the other thing is just around understanding the kids and where they're at that age is if you ask a kid, ask my niece and nephew at that age when they're playing, say how was football today? They'll tell you how they did. And they'll tell you some of the things that I scored or I cleared off the line. I made a good save. Often when you ask kids of say 14, 15, how did you do today? They'll tell you how the team did.
I'm finding that.
They'll tell you how we played well. We did this. That's sort of a bit of a gauge. Again, it's talking generalisations. A bit of a gauge where their reference is very much themselves in the foundation phase, themselves in their own world. And a lot of time that might be in imaginary worlds that they create themselves. And we should encourage that. It's that age. It's such a magical time for the kids. But then we understand as they start getting older and they go through puberty and the brain develops and they develop and they mature across all four corners that the reference becomes a bit wider. The peer group becomes really important. They see themselves a lot more in relation to others. The team becomes really important. How they're perceived by others. So yeah, obviously they change, but also because of the way they change, then they're ready to understand space and they're ready to understand their role in the team. They're ready to start understanding how to share the ball, have that empathy, not just on a personal level, but on like a football level of knowing what the teammate might want, understanding each other's strengths. I've got to play with this winger that's quick, so I can play the ball in the space for that player, but the left winger is technical but not as fast, so I need to try and play the ball at his or her feet.
Yeah, so I'm finding that now at under 15s, which our team are, the majority now are displaying those behaviours that you're seeing. Whereas under 4, you know, we're a team generally of late birthdays, late physical developers. But I've noticed a real sea change in the last sort of 6 months of that appreciation for team before self.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to see, actually.
Yeah.
It's really refreshing.
And we're not saying that in foundation phase that being a good teammate is not important. It is. Just understanding what that means. So there's a great example last night. We're watching Pete work with the under-9s where one of the boys, Toby, went to get his gloves for his teammate, asked his mum to go to the car, so his teammate who forgot his goalkeeper gloves. So yeah, we went out his way to do that, and Pete highlighted.
I imagine he'd be jumping on that.
So Pete highlighted that's that's great. That's the behaviours we want to see. So being a team player is really important. Just understand that we're looking for those moments of looking out for teammates, of in the foundation phase, certainly just looking after teammates, behaviours that help others, reassuring the mates, being friendly to people, and then as they get older, certainly to the older ages of the youth development phase, then talking about the role in the team and different roles and responsibilities, the group hierarchies and all that type of stuff comes out, understanding the role in the group. And that might be different to schools, so how do they deal with that? And so you get into the social corners as important, but it just comes out differently. Yeah. It looks a little bit different.
You said that, actually. It's just reminded me of something as well while we're singing Pete's praises of something that I regularly notice about him is this extremely finely tuned radar to teachable moments, whether they be, like you say, socialization and behaviours, or football stuff.
Yeah,
he's very highly tuned, and that's a trait I see in the best coaches that they are observing almost like on a radar.
Yes,
to try and catch these moments.
I think what helps that is seeing the kids as kids, understanding the role of the coaches to help develop them as people as well as players, and catching the moments around reinforcing good behaviours, as well as also, and it's not one or the other, it's both, as well as catching and reinforcing the good football moments and good skills and good decisions. But part of that, I think, comes from having really clarity of what are the things you're looking for, what do we want to see. So if you have, so it's quite clear that Pete's looking for that. So often when you're trying to see everything, or you're looking for everything, especially when you're starting out coaching, it's quite hard to see everything. But some of those behaviours, as soon as he's on it, because they're the positive behaviours that he knows that he's looking for, and that are good for learning, good for the kids to develop essential life skills, really.
But I think that's probably one of a good selling point. That's not the right phrase, but I can't think of anything better at the moment for play and small-sided games, like you mentioned, because I see a lot of coaches who get if you take their kind of energy level, or they get decision fatigue from worrying so much about the what, like what the X's and O's. What am I going to deliver for these players tonight? Because it solely rests on me. Yeah. Whereas if we give the players some freedom to choose, to self-regulate, to manage their own games, to play, which is something that I don't think they get enough opportunity to do. I think it frees up the coach to stand back a little bit, observe, and catch those moments.
Yeah. John Allpress used to always say, and I still believe, if you're not sure what to do, play a game.
Yeah.
It's such a great fallback, if you like, as a coach. Sometimes circumstances dictate that you haven't got the area, you haven't got the numbers that you might have planned for, or so if you're in a bit of trouble in your own mind, just play a game. It's better than wasting time, and it's really important for the kids to do that. And this idea of play is crucial, and I think we accept it's important in the 5 to 11 age group, but it's also important in 12 to 16.
Definitely.
That's why we play. It's the feel of play, especially some of the unstructured stuff is still important, because within that you can practice. You can use imagination, you can be creative, you can practice the individual moments. Sometimes when it becomes structured, the kids are less likely to practice some of those individual moments because they're then trying to work out their role in the team. And so again, it's just the diet, it's the balance of as they get older, but it's still really important. But play is crucial, and I think what is important with that is planning. Where if you can design the game right, and I know you've had Ben on talking about constraints, coaching. So I'm not going to go too heavy into that because people can sort of pick up if you want to know more about that from Ben's podcast. But if we get the game right, it's not just a case of let the game be the teacher, but if the conditions of the game are right, there'll be opportunity to learn.
Yeah, and I think
there's some real good opportunity to learn. And then if you can carefully observe and reinforce some of the sort of good behaviours and good individual bits of play and collective bits of play, and find ways to ask the right questions, that sort of, as a more experienced coaches get to, choosing the right interventions, but that's sort of carefully chosen to help enhance learning, not because I think I've got to get these 3 points out. I'm going to. So it's all about, if we start with getting the games right for the kids, then it gives them the opportunity to learn regardless, almost to how we interview these coaches. There's the opportunity to learn. Then we're going to carefully help them learn.
Yeah, I've started to reframe the way I look at planning practices and sessions now, because I've seen some fantastic examples of detailed planning. I really have. With some of the coaches that I've worked with in the last few years, it puts me to shame, because I struggle with that level of detail. What I find is that the longer I spend planning, the worse the session, because it becomes like a recipe to deliver it. And the way I've started to reframe planning is almost like setting sail. So you know where you want to get to. You get in the boat, but actually the best laid plans can look fantastic on paper, but once 16 players start running around, and then you've got other environmental factors, you know, it's chucking it down outside now. Yeah. Well, how do the players respond to that? And you've got all these complex mix of things going on that don't necessarily come out in the technical detail of a session plan. And what do you do when things go wrong, or you know the players don't play to the rules, or you know that set pattern doesn't quite work? So I've kind of looked at planning now almost like being in a one person yacht. Yeah. And you get in there and you've got no idea which way the wind's going to go, but you need to react to it and respond to it. Yeah. And you know, that's just the way I kind of
I agree. I think it's the tough thing at times with something like planning is we'll all have different ways. Coaches out there have different tendencies and different. I'm a little bit of a scatty thinker, so
likewise.
When I cook, I just throw things in. I'm not really a recipe follower, so that's me. But other people are. So sometimes people would like that type of structure in terms of their thinking to plan. So one of the key questions I think is, what's the purpose of planning? Who's it for? What's it for? And I just tend to have, I think, quite a simple process around who's it that working with. So what stage of development are they? Who are these individuals? Just having that type of starting from that point, and then trying to have some clarity around it. So what do we think we want to help the players learn and develop, and then thinking about, well, what might good look like, and what might be some of the things I'm looking for.
Do you know what I've found has been more effective in my own planning recently is actually planning what do I want to say to who. So who are the individuals tonight that I want to have a one-to-one with to pick up something brilliant that they did on the weekend, or find out a little bit more about X, Y, and Z that's going on in their lives, and actually planning for the connection stuff. Yeah. And the football stuff kind of starts to take care of itself, because you get this kind of really connective environment, quite laid back environment where there's a feeling that people can take risks and be themselves. Yeah.
And I think one thing that you like, absolutely, I think part of the planning is maybe planning for, I think observations is not easy. And so you might, so sometimes the plan, I think this is the bit where it's easy to get muddled up with. You might do a plan, and you might have some things that you want to, so if you're working on receiving or you're working on finishing, you might have some things, key factors, as we used to call it, where you might have some things that you think, these are some things I'm looking for and want to try and help the players to learn. That doesn't mean that you've got to give them that. That might just be actually for that to help your observation. So when you are watching the kids and you've connected in whatever ways and you've worked, and you might plan, as you say, sort of some of the social aspects and how you connect differently with different people, but might just give you give some clarity about what you in the football bit, what you're trying to look for. But that doesn't necessarily mean you've got to give them all that. You might just pick one little thing from that you think that individual player might need that night, or that you've seen on the weekend, or you've seen in previous weeks. So the plan might just help your observation as much as anything around. These are some of the things that I'm looking for. That might come out. Yeah. And not feeling that because it's on the plan, I've got to cover this. Yeah. It's not for that. It's just to try and it might help your observation. So when you are then coaching, you work with the players, you connect with them, you set the environment. You then design your practice thinking, well, these are some of the things we want them to learn. It helps give you a lens for your observation. I think I'm looking for these things tonight in the kids. It might be in any of the 4 corners. It might be something that you plan around social corner, around different behaviours or leadership skills or different life skills or whatever. Or actually thinking about tech tack might be they're working on finishing. So just think, well, what to do before the ball comes, as the ball comes. So then you might see, you might miss a chance, and then you might think, okay, I'll see, that might be a one-off, so let it go, and then there might be certain types of finishes that you want to help them learn. But it just gives you that sort of might help observation. But then it's a decision as a coach of when and how do you step in, do you let it go, do you speak to them individually, do you just log it for, I've noticed this, so I might pick that up further down the line. But it's hard not to be governed by the plan on the paper at times.
It is. And I was laughing before because you mentioned early experiences and games and things like that, and I chuckled because I was with our lads last night. We had a friendly. We've been fortunate as a club. We've moved on to one of the new hub sites, the Park Life sites, which are just it's absolute paradise. I never thought I'd coach on a facility like that. And so on a Wednesday night, at the moment we're getting teams in, just playing some friendly games, and the lads pretty much manage it themselves. They sort the team out. They, and I sat with a few of the parents last night, just watched and helped make some subs, but really sat on my fishing stool and watched the game, and really enjoyable. I was thinking my first experience of a grassroots club was it was a training pitch which was next to the first team pitch at this club, and it was literally 20 aside. I was an 8-year-old, and there was I was probably the youngest and fattest, and then there was 15 and 16-year-olds, and if you touched it, and it was 10 till 12 on a Saturday morning, if you touched the ball once, you'd done well. It was like mob football, so it's probably slightly different from your early experiences.
Just what were the good things about it though?
Do you know what? I really remember vividly. They had these nasty silk shorts on and like Gola boots, and I remember thinking, just don't mess up, and you had to kind of earn the respect of the elders. And I probably didn't learn too much about football because the opportunity wasn't really there, but you had to kind of get the elders' respect. And because we used to play in 2-year age groups, you were either playing, you were playing up every other year, and that I found that I really enjoyed that. And so even when I was at 14, I'd be playing with 16-year-olds, and 15, I'd be playing with men. So I got a lot from that kind of playing up and earning the respect. Technically, I was nowhere near good enough because the rhetoric at that time was two touch. Everything was two touch, and I think we're still battling with that. We've talked about that before. It's something that we need to kind of just. I spend as much time getting coaches just to think. What is the purpose of that? What are you getting from it, and what's the pros and the cons? Because if that's all we ever do, we're missing so much.
We are.
We're missing so much.
Because there's lots of things that come from that as well.
But then I was talking to somebody today about who was it? I think the physio this morning. I was talking to him about that was it. So a few of the lads that I coach, they play in goals on a Friday night. So it is, I think it's like a little 5-6-a-side leagues on the 3G. And interestingly, the only adults present is the one in the middle refereeing.
Right.
So the boys sort their own teams out. They enter the league. They've got to do all the administration. The parents just drop them off and go. And they're there for a couple of hours on a Friday night. Gets them off the street, gets them playing. And one of the lads said to me last night, he said, "Oh God, got a whack. I was playing against some 19-year-old who's about 6'7", and I was like, but they absolutely love it, and I think it's because they get the chance to control it and they regulate it and they sort themselves out. There's no adults shouting at them, telling them what to do. It's probably like the Wallsend Boys Club, was it?
That sort of search for independence, that autonomy is really important, isn't it? But I grew up place called Warzone Boys Club up in Newcastle, which was great. It was like paradise. It was.
Have you seen the shirt?
Have you got one? Have you?
92 season.
92 season Newcastle. But yeah, so it was an old club there. It stunk. The smell was unique. Let's say.
What was it?
I don't know. It's just like it's like feisty. It was horrible, really, but it was brilliant. It was brilliant as well. Whenever you went back, like the smell just hit you. It was like you felt at home. Like years later, but yeah. So grew up from the age of 5.
Just going down there.
So there used to be a all comers night on a Saturday night where you turn up, pay your 10 pence or whatever, pile in, and get organised into teams and just play. You get a team name. The first thing you do is do some races up and down, and then into football for the rest of the night, and it'd just be like round robin. So it was like a five-a-side court, but also when you were watching, there was like pool tables and that type of stuff. So it was literally it was a youth club.
Yeah.
And it was actually built for the youth workers and the families of the shipbuilders. So it was totally built as a youth club. But from that little hut, and there was 2 parts of the club. There was the actual clubhouse, but then there was also the representative team or the 11-a-side teams.
So was it like a indoor court kind of?
The clubhouse was an indoor court.
You played off the walls.
You could play off the walls.
Yeah.
Couldn't score in the box. One of the best was head height.
Yeah.
Play. So the ball couldn't go above head height, and also the first pass couldn't go back to the keeper.
Ah. What, from the centre or?
No, from the goalie. So
if the goalie plays it out, then you can't play back.
Yeah.
A bit like futsal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So goalie roll, you can't go back, which helps because then you've got to find a solution.
Well, effectively, you're I suppose if you.
So it links to the one of the constraints of the practice last night. Repeated with a foundation for his DNA was you can't pass backwards.
Right.
So then you've got to find a solution to play forwards, and you might do that by a pass, but you might do that by stealing the ball and dribbling and finding a different solution. So because the first pass couldn't go back, you had to find some solution. So that and because the head height rule meant that you couldn't just boot it. You couldn't. Some did off the walls, and
was it when it stays on as well?
No, it wasn't like on the Saturday night all comers. Sometimes it was depending on how many numbers turned up. But again, that range from like 5 to 7 or 8 year old was quite a wide range on that Saturday night session. Right. But then every night of the week there was leagues. So you win a team and you play. I was more from under 9s upwards. Before that, I just played like friendlies, and you get like 5, 6 year old. But someone as a 6-year-old playing the under 9s league. So yeah, you'd get in a you'd play in a team and you'd have like fixtures.
I remember going to youth club, a little bit older than that, but it was a similar sort of thing. It was like I guess the sports hall was probably 2 badminton courts. That's how you measure it normally, isn't it? Yeah. And we would play 3v3 or 4v4, and it was you'd be sort of playing up 2 years maximum.
Yeah.
So it'd be like say year 7 to year 9 or whatever, and it was winner stays on.
Yeah.
And that social pressure was huge. And if you managed to take a year 9 scalp and beat one of them teams and then hang in there and stay on, it was like, well, what was the other rule? I think it was if our team had won and your team comes on the court, if it's a draw, we stay on. So you've got to actually come and beat us. Yeah. So little things like that have kind of stood the test of time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was brilliant. Some kids came and didn't even play themselves. They didn't want to play, but they played pool. Or there was a table tennis table upstairs, and there was a judo room. It was just carnage a lot of the time, as you can imagine. Parents came, and some dropped the kids off, and they had just that mix. It really was a youth club, but what you also had was like a netting, and the pitch was sort of down a bit, so you had to go down 6 steps to get to the pitch. And when you walked down the steps, especially if it was a busy night, you had one side was a wall, one side was like a viewing gallery. So if it was busy, then it felt like when you're going down the steps, it felt you were going into
like Gladiator.
Yeah.
Cool.
And you never ever would, if you were playing against a team, there was steps down on both sides. You would never share steps.
Really?
No, you would never share steps. And whenever the game, if you were coming on next and the game finished, you'd run and get the ball and make sure you used to get like 10 seconds of like a few kicks of the ball. You used to like try and grab it. It's gone.
You've ever seen concrete
Yeah,
football?
literally, you would never share steps with
Really?
the other team. But that was it. And you play. I probably played there 3 or 4 nights a week.
Right.
And luckily for me, my brother's older, so 3 or 4 years older. I used to join in. If there was friendlies and then shorter players, used to join in. Used to join with them. So I got a bit more football as well. But yeah, great times. And like you say, it was just a case of anyone could turn up, anyone could play. And I kept doing that until I was 16. So
Down at Wallsend?
At the club, actually, yeah. So there's 2 parts. So, but at the age of 9, then there was also 11-a-side teams. But at that time, there was only one team per age. I think the first team was on the 10s actually. So that's when you play in an 11-a-side league, and you had to select the best kids, if you like, to play in the 11-a-side. So everyone could play 5-a-side, and then selected like the best kids out of the group to make a team for the 11-a-side league. When you go and play other clubs, but like grassroots footballers now, in terms of that, where you're part of a club and you play other clubs.
Yeah.
But there wasn't that many teams. I think there was seven 11-a-side teams. So back then it was 11-a-side from under 10.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, we were 11-a-side. Same pitch as the first team.
Yeah.
10 years old.
Yeah. We were lucky we had a school pitch, which was just because the field wasn't that big, was a bit smaller, so we played sometimes on that. So different school pitches, middle school pitches and stuff, so it wasn't so bad. Sometimes you did play on full-size pitches, which I was always quite big for my age, so it wasn't too bad for me. But so that was. But what you got? So then what we had, luckily, was then we had 5-a-side 3 or 4 times a week. We train once with a team from 9 onwards.
Yeah,
and then play on a weekend. But then you also have school games, and then you also, as we got to like 10, but it was all Centre of Excellence days. So I went to Newcastle Centre of Excellence from about the age of 9 to 12, 13.
Yeah.
So you play for the club, go to the Centre of Excellence. So this was like pre-academy, showing me age.
Yeah.
So that was part of that was the mix. So I had like a mix of experiences, mix of football.
And then when did West Ham come about?
And then I went to West Ham, and then I had problems with growth actually. So I missed about a year when I was about 12, 13. Got released at Newcastle, and then I was about 14. The club started, I got fit, and I'd gone through growth, and then clubs came back in, and then Michael had just gone down to West Ham as an as a YT after his GCSEs, and I went to West Ham. I was thinking I was about 13. I played in the youth cup a year down.
Okay.
So it was under 14 tournament. So I played in the youth cup. That was the first time I played for West Ham. But I just went and tried at different clubs. The system was a bit different there then. Generally, it was a different time, if you like.
Yeah.
I just loved West Ham.
I didn't realise you went to different clubs, but so there was...
So I went on that sort of journey of lots of different clubs.
Right.
Trial here, trial there. Got a few different offers and chose West Ham.
So what was it about them?
2 things: the environment,
specifically.
The environment around that, the way the lads were, the feel around the place was different to what I'd experienced anywhere else.
How different?
It felt most like the boys' club.
All right.
It felt like Chadwell Heath, the training ground, wasn't great. The facilities weren't great. It was just like a friendliness and a warmth around it. And the way that people were, there's not just the coaches, but people around the training ground. There's lots of people that even Shirley, who was in the canteen, and Jimmy Frith, who used to help collect but it was like people were just friendly and just look after you. I don't know, there's something about it that other people went and didn't like it as much, but just people are different, aren't they? And Michael had that similar experience. I nearly didn't sign because Michael, when I first started playing, we went to West Ham, Michael was like 16, 17.
Right.
So he just moved down himself from Newcastle. By the time I was 60 and ready to sign, like as a scholar, as a YT, then Michael was in the first team.
All right, I didn't realise it was that late. Yeah.
Yeah, so Michael was in the first team. So so he was 20. So by that time, there was a lot of starting to get known a lot as Michael's brother.
Yeah.
And a bit of pressure around that. I went to different clubs. I nearly went to Tottenham. I got offered money by other clubs. All that type of stuff was still going on back then. But my mum and dad never told us anything about that. They just said, choose where you want to go. It would have been life-changing in a way, not so much then, but certainly when Michael went away, there was quite a lot of money offered for Michael as a kid to my parents, but they didn't tell Michael. They just said, go where you want to go. And then like years later, Michael found out, I can't believe you didn't mention that, but they just said we want you to go. So so I just love West Ham, and so I decided before that, because of the environment and because of the football, the way we play football, or I expected and asked to play, was
And yeah, I've seen some conversations with you and Tony Carr that we actually used on our level 2, which is freely available. I think it's on the, if you Google FA level 2 Vimeo, there's a playlist of all the resources and videos that we use, but anyone can access it. And there's some really good conversations that are clipped up from you and Tony talking about those experiences at West Ham. I don't know if you want to, because
I was quite lucky. So we, I think that's what like linking it back to now, what that give was for myself. I went through the pathway a bit from grassroots. I played the games program was Wallsend Boys Club, playing grassroots until 16. Same for Michael. So Michael was playing for Wallsend Boys Club at 16, and then made his Premier League debut, I think, at 18. Played for England national senior team at 19. So he's gone within 3 years. That just shows.
It's incredible.
So when people think about, say, he's passed, and they think, well, what did he do? What system? And I think, well, actually, he just grew up playing the boys club,
loving the game.
Didn't really do any passing drills. Not saying that the bad or whatever, but did little bits of structured coaching around it. But it was mainly quite a play-based pathway. So yeah, I lost my train of thought there. But
what you were saying about the way that they you said the way that they wanted you to play and the way that they were.
Yeah, so I think we're expected to play in quite a creative way. Tony was and the whole club was big on that at that point.
They brought some players through then, didn't they?
Yeah, and it was quite a good period. So like I said, I was lucky enough to go through that period and see, obviously go through it myself, see a bit of that pathway and what that looked like. But that's only one. But I don't know. I've also seen sort of Michael's age group go through.
What was that? Was that Joe Cole?
Yeah. So there was there's others before that. What the first one I really seen was like Rio, Frank Lampard and Rio Ferdinand's age. They got the Youth Cup final, and they were like they were a little bit older. They were the first couple really at that period. So they got into the first team. And then about 2 years later, it was like Michael and Joe Cole's age group. And then they got through. And then a couple of years after that was like Jermaine Defoe, Leon Britton, who went to Swansea. And my age group. So I played with them a little bit when he played up, that type of stuff. Played 2 years up at times. And then there was Glenn Johnson and Ferdinand. That was sort of my group. So when I went to the Milk Cup at 13, Anton Ferdinand was there, Glenn Johnson was there, Elliot Ward was there, who played a lot of Football League, Kieran Richardson was in that team, Liam Ridgewell had been there before he went to Villa. He moved to Villa as quite young, so there's them types of lads around. And then there's others who were seen as the ones fancied, if you like, which for lots of different reasons didn't end up becoming the footballers, if you like. But yeah, just gives you what that gave us when I was obviously doing this. It just gives you a bit of sense of reality of, even at 15, 16, still in an academy level, there's a long way to go.
Well, football isn't gymnastics. Gymnastics are, and I'll probably get shot down for this, but an early specialisation sport.
Yeah.
Football, you can wait. You can be patient. You don't reach your peak until 25, 26, 27, say.
Yeah.
And yet, we make decisions, and even in grassroots on young players, 10 years or more before that, way more before that. And
yeah.
I've said the longer I've been in this, the more that it affirms that for me, a key quality, if not for a coach, is patience. If you're working with young developing players, because they'll surprise you. I've seen boys that I've coached in the last couple of years who've literally almost overnight just you kind of do a double take and think, have I just seen that? 6 months ago that player was really struggling, and now he or she has just jumped like quantum leaps. I call it.
Yeah. The difference can be. It almost defies logic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's the reality of of coaching in that age group of 12 to 16, especially 14, 15, the differences are huge. And there's a reason we talk about the four corners. There's a reason we talk about this stuff, because it's real. It happens in front of you. Some of it's more visible than other things. So the physical development is obvious. It's usually quite obvious there to see, but there's often some psychosocial stuff going on which is less obvious, and but it will be going on different rates in different stages in different ways for different kids, and that's what's really hard to coach in this age group.
Yeah. Just to give an example of the physical differences, I laughed last season. There were two boys in our team, and I'm not exaggerating here, this is the truth. One had size 4 feet and one has got size 14 feet. So in one age group, you've got that to deal with.
That difference,
yeah.
And that's a real challenge for coaches. And at times you can do things in training to try and the way you pair people, the way you design tasks. Sometimes in matches, it's harder to control.
Absolutely.
So you can't really control what the opposition do, or
what they value, or
how they play, or you don't know in advance who their fast big players or early developers are, and sometimes the game starts and it can be a challenge for people. That's the reality of it. There's no real shortcuts or easy solutions for that. But obviously, as we know, those early developers and kids that dominate at those times aren't necessarily going to be the ones that'll be the best in the end, although some might. And it's also really important that we find ways of challenging especially the sort of physically early maturers, find ways of challenging them in other ways. I think there's this thing where there's a recognition now where we need to look after the late maturers. We need to find ways to help them. But also, just because kids develop early doesn't mean that then they're going to fade in the end, or they might actually. They need sport and challenge as well. So trying to get the right sport and challenge for the kids, and do that in training, and do that by the positions that they play by. But it is a challenge. It's an ongoing challenge.
I think challenge is the right word. It's something that I've been doing recently. Has been speaking to some a cross section of under 15s that play in the city here, and some of the stuff that I thought I knew a fair amount about young people at that age and what they want from football, but I didn't realise the extent to which they want to be challenged. The consistent message I'm getting through is they would rather, the last thing they want is just a certain win, just to be to have a complete certainty in anything that they do. They want, I think one of them used the word, I want it to be a mystery.
Yeah.
They want they want testing.
Yeah.
So many of them, they're talking about they would rather be the underdog than the favourite.
Yeah.
Going into the game, because there's that opportunity to prove yourself.
Yeah.
It's been really enlightening just listening to the depth that they yearn for this challenge.
Well, that's what's really important to ask the kids and for all of us to always keep a handle on that. It's their game, and we need to be sort of centered around them and where they are, who are they, why do they play, what do they want from the experience, and how do we then as coaches support and give them that, and find ways of challenging them individually for whatever they want and whatever their intention and why they turn up. And the big difference within your group, that's where it becomes really challenging. But that's our role, the coach, to try and support and challenge each individual. Yeah. And at times we talk about supporting individuals a lot, but we need to challenge them as well.
Definitely.
And that's what we link about what Pete Sturgis does amazingly well with the foundation phase. Because of the environment and the connection he gets and the trust he gets from the players, gives them the chance to then challenge in the right way, in a positive way. So the level of challenge is really high as well, but the level of support's really high.
Yeah.
So both those things together give the opportunity for kids to learn, grow, develop.
I think Pete's quote was, "I want to create an environment, or we want to create an environment where we can safely throw the kitchen sink."
Absolutely.
The players, but that you reminded me there, just talking about this is another kind of, I think, cultural norm in coaching, maybe they're saying teaching and education in this country, is that we I challenge coaches that I work with a lot about this, that we have this tendency to start easy and build
Yeah.
up. That's like a default model.
Yeah,
And I remember Paul Holder, Noddy was saying that this years and years ago, is that if we work off that model and you've got an hour for your session, you say, ask the coaches, at what point was the Goldilocks zone? Where was the sweet spot? Where was the time when they were challenged? And often it might be the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's taken us 50 minutes to get there.
To get there.
So let's don't throw it out and say that you're kind of starting easy and progressing. Never say never. But let's think about, why don't we start difficult?
Yeah.
Dare say it too difficult, and then scale back from that. And we might just get to that Goldilocks zone at 10 past the hour rather than 10 to.
Yeah. And
then we can spend more time in there, giving these young players what they want, which is to be tested and to be challenged.
Yeah, and I think it's absolutely vital that we do that the kids need challenged, and that they're capable of a lot with the right conditions. You know, if we really believe in them and help and support them and help provide the right challenge, then they're capable of a lot.
And that was another quote that really, you know, Paul's been a big role model of mine. I caught up with him at St George's recently, and he stuck with me. He said, assume that they can rather than they can't.
Yeah.
And again, just reframing that.
Absolutely. And that's vital. But the thing that we need to be careful of is that we don't do that by premature professionalism, by thinking you need to look at the adult game, by imposing an adult model. That's not what that means, what you're saying. And I know you don't mean that. I'm just highlighting that that's not what it means. It means about understanding the kids, whoever you coach in whatever age group, what do they need, what type of challenge do they need that's suitable for the stage they're at. Because if we skip stages, you can't go back.
Well, one thing I've challenged coaches that I've been working with recently to just to ask themselves the question is, what type of coach do those players need you to be? So whatever age and stage that you're working in, who and what do they need you to be? Not do you want to be, who do they need you to be?
Yeah. Absolutely. Questions like, what does it feel to be coached by you? Always good questions to ask yourself. What do they need most from me? What's my role with supporting this? What do they not need from me? But yeah, understanding where they're at. But I think it's just understanding the reasons for playing, and one of the things around football and kids. If we start with the kids, they'll be so different in lots of ways. But they'll also have real different reasons for playing. Whether they can articulate it or not at times, but it might be that they want to develop and become as good as they can be, and see themselves having a career in the game. And they might be playing for the district and the county, and at that end of the spectrum, if you like. But they might be playing to stay healthy, or play with mates, or a whole host of reasons, or might be just socially to be seen. There's a multitude of reasons. So we need to understand why they play, really.
And I think part of it, from the boys I've spoken to recently, is being part of something bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and like you say, being part of a team, fitness and health, which is something that's probably I dare say we probably wouldn't have said that when we were in adolescence talking about, because it was just kind of a given. But yeah, those recognizing that, and I'm starting to question whether the dropout that we see at 13, 14, 15, 16 in terms of numbers of players and teams playing the game, I'm starting to question whether it's all down to the player motivation, because we've had a lot of boys. You know, we had 5 or 6 boys that have come down on a Wednesday night training recently saying, can we come and join? And I'm like, we've got a squad of 19. I literally physically can't, as much as I'd love to, I can't take it anymore. And 6 of them come last night to the game, said, can we join? And I'm like, lads, it's literally 1 in, 1 out at the moment. But I tell you what, if you can get a team of lads together, I'll promise you I'll get you a coach and we'll open up a team. And what, really? It's like, they want to play. I think perhaps, I wonder sometimes, I wouldn't put it all on the young players. I would say sometimes is it just the adults that have had enough. And
we've got a huge part to play in it. I think there'll be some things that we can't control. There might be life takes over for some kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether it be some kids might have to work because the family circumstances dictate that they have to work, or they might choose to work on a weekend, or it might be that GCSEs are coming and they need to prioritise that. There'll be or they've decided to specialise in another sport. There might be reasons which are I don't know how to put it, but pretty positive reasons.
Yeah, I think I've heard the phrase used, good, bad, and ugly dropout, and that's a good dropout.
Yeah,
there's
some reasons, and this is where I think where it's really disappointing is because the experience isn't great, and they just had enough, and they don't enjoy it because of the coach, because of the teammates, because of the offer that we get. I think as custodians of the game, for all of us, I think we need to try and do our bit in two areas. I think around the organisation of it, if that's the right word, but around the offer that they get, what competition's like, what the format of the competition is, all that stuff around the organisation of it, and the commitment and all that type of thing. But then the environment, once they get there, the environment, and that's the role, certainly as coaches, that we can't control.
Yeah.
And making sure that we provide the experience they need. And they need to be inclusive, but also need to, like you say, there needs to be support, there needs to be challenge, there needs to be interest, and it needs to stretch them. I think part of the challenge in this age group is it's a really tough age group to coach in, and often there's a gap, and we're not sure where to fill the gap from.
When you say that, what age group are you?
12 to 16,
yeah.
Sorry. So they're coming out of foundation phase, say 12 to 14, and often they still might need some of that, depending on the kids, how long they've played. Some kids might be coming into football, so they might need some more of that. Might need to sort of extend foundation phase, if you like. Might need still loads of staying on the ball and really playful activity. But often we sort of think, well, what next? And one of the challenges I think for coaches is they keep doing what they've done with the kids when they're doing the same practices, or they're speaking to the kids in the same way as they did when they're 7, 8, 9-year-old. So the kids get bored. So one of the challenges as coaches is we need to develop as the kids develop and adapt as they adapt. So some of the sort of fundamental ideas are the same, but what it looks like in practice is different. Or the other thing is where we're not quite sure how to fill that gap with 12, 16s, and what to do is it'll sort of put an adult model on it. Just do what seniors do, and neither are ideal. It's we've got to get it right for the kids and where they're at, and that's not easy. So often, because when kids start playing level 11, because they're playing level 11, we're expected to look like the adult game.
Yeah.
And kids to understand the positions and understand the 3-4-3, the inverted wingers, and well, last year we were asking them to stay on the ball, and they could have fun and smile. Have a nice
Can't
time.
do that at level 11.
Well, level 11's come, so forget all that rubbish. We're into serious football now. And it's just not right for the kids.
No.
But if all we do is, if we don't understand who the kids are at, and we're trying to focus just on the individual skills, kids want to, as they get older, kids generally are interested in how the team's doing and their role within the team. We need to help them understand their role in the team.
You said about formats even there. So I do sit on the Liverpool County Prem Youth League committee. So it's like kind of the main contributory league in the city. And then we've got now divisions from 11s right the way through to adults. But one of the things we've been looking at is what's the format. So youth development review, that Nick pioneered, and there's just been transformational in terms of the culture and grassroots mini soccer 9v9. We then go to under 12s, under 13s, and it's like straight into that September to May, one division, stay in that division. And the problem is if you're not matched appropriately, and you could be locked in as a team or playing, you're stuck, and then your experience could be miserable, or could be unchallenging at the other end of the spectrum. And so I spoke to a few different leagues, and one East Lancs League up in, obviously East Lancashire. And one of the things that they did that we found interesting is they split the adult league, that's September to May, they break it into 3.
Yeah.
And they do smaller divisions. They try and have at least 3 divisions per age group with less teams.
Yeah.
So if you are in a mismatched division, you're only there for, say, a term. So and then within that, they'll play each other once. Let's say there's 8 teams in the division. They might play, so you play 7 league games.
Yeah.
There's a trophy for the winners. Well done. And then we'll move up and down. We'll promote and relegate for the next part of the season, part 2. And again, there's another trophy for part 2. And then part 3 is your kind of traditional cup. Yeah. But it might not necessarily be a knockout. It might be like a Champions League style format, or and then a round robin sort of thing. Speaking to teenagers about this, just to kind of get their gauge. And the thing that shocked me the most was, the response was generally overly positive. That sounds exciting, because it feels like you've got more to play for. Yeah. But I was surprised that the thing they were looking forward to was, I don't want to get relegated. So it means that if you're down at the bottom of a division, it's not like a meaningless game. You've got something to play for in every game. Yeah. That was the bit that surprised me the most, actually.
Yeah. And that's why it's really important to ask the kids as we go on. It's something that we're all looking at the FA around how do we organise competition? If that's the right competitions, right, in terms of formats around. The other thing that's just important for kids is that although they go to play 11v11, small-sided football still have a huge benefit.
I think you mentioned the diet before, didn't you?
Yeah, and the diet between real informal play, some structured practice, the formats and the competition and the variety and the volume of matches and different types of matches that they get. And just seeing the value in it. So 11v11 is important for the kids, but so is futsal, so is 7v7. If you have the opportunity for the kids to play in a variety of formats, then take it, because it's good for them. And by changing the format, what it does, it gives maybe some kids that might dominate in 11-11, some different kids have the chance to have some success, in whether it's smaller numbers or smaller areas or smaller pitches. So the two things you get from that is a different experience, which can be beneficial for the kids just in terms of enjoyment, but also some real player development benefits.
Yeah, there's a really
across
good,
all 4 corners.
Yeah, I think there's a really good article in the Boot Room, one of the back issues. I think it was Dan Machici. In fact, it was Dan Machici talking about the way that they set when he was. I think he was the academy manager or head of coaching at MK Dons, and they would have small pitch or minimum pitch, maximum pitch, and they would have like minimum width, maximum length, or maximum width, minimum length, all these different pitches. And then they might play 7v7 on a full size pitch, and they might play 11v11 on the smallest pitch, and then really, I guess
it's the same thing. And when we talk about practice returns and the trade-offs around repetition of certain things, around sort of realism, just apart, it's the same thing in around what do they get from the sort of.
Well, you're increasing the bandwidth, aren't you, of experiences?
Yeah.
You think about the differences between 7v7 on a big pitch to 11v11 on a tight pitch, and everything in between. A narrow pitch forces you to play forwards. A wide pitch allows you to switch play. Yeah. You're broadening the experience, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's not just a case of just do loads of different things. Hopefully there'll be some reason of what would be right for the kids. Some kids might need. I think just as a general rule, I think variety can be really helpful and good for development. But ideally, be able to sort of pick the right diet of how much of what do they need. Yeah. But just taking opportunities. So the way our competition structure and the way our leagues are set up generally be 11v11 predominantly. So you'll probably get a lot of that weekly or through the season and through schools competition. So even as I think what can control as coaches and coaches watching this, then just think, well, if there is opportunity to play different formats, whether it be a summer festival or winter futsal league or whatever that might be, then it's really good for it's still well, I think it's accepted that it's good for the kids when they're younger, but it's still really good for the kids. Definitely. And research, I think, will back that up. But also, I guess a bit of my personal bias coming out. I think of some of my own sort of growing up, my own pathway and Michael's pathway around getting playing five-a-side indoor and playing 11v11 on a bigger pitch. Then you get the chance to play passes over different distances and play the ball in space and all of that on the 11v11 pitch. And get that sort of broader vision and be able to practice some and defend bigger spaces, and that's really important. Strikers to run into big spaces, but they also sometimes get some tight area receiving and quick feet and shifting and shooting and blocks and repetition, all that on the smaller side of football. So just understanding what you get, and there's benefit in both.
And I want to dig into a bit more of the kind of process and detail around the youth development phase DNA piece of work that you've been leading on. So what was the you said it was 18 months.
Yeah.
What have you been doing? What have you been doing?
Basically, 5 years ago, we launched England DNA, which was really a blueprint for our national teams with some principles to consider across coach education. So anyone that's been on any of our courses in the last 5 years will recognise certainly the 5 core pillars, if you like, are who we are, how we play, how we coach, future play, and how we support. And they're in all our courses now.
And I think the caveat, or the important thing for that is that, you said it was for the national teams at the time, and it was a question that was being asked: is what do we stand for? Well, that's what we want, and the coaching principles is something that the national coaches put themselves and wanted to be judged against. They wanted an England training session to look like that, and I think that's not a stick to beat grassroots coaches with. It's saying this is what the national teams are about.
Just what
have you thought about
we believe. Just this. I think it was just people. We ask people to develop their own club philosophies and their own coaching philosophies. It was just, I think, from Dan Ashworth's point of view, a chance to set out. This is our sort of philosophy, if you like. These are some of our principles and considerations that we work from. So initially, it was centered around the national teams, trying to have a cohesive philosophy across England teams from 15s through in the male and female game, with some of the principles then shared through coach education, just to try and help organise some of our thinking as coaches. It's quite a nice frame. Then 5 pillars are quite a nice frame of reference. And then part of that was almost, well, what does that mean for the whole game? And I know today's centered around grassroots, and what does it mean to grassroots coaches? So some of the coaching fundamentals are still relevant for everyone, regardless, transferable across ages and contexts and all that stuff. But then I think there was a feeling that we'd like to have some age appropriate guidance, information, some considerations, really, I guess, to go with that for the whole game. So, 3 years ago, was it? 3.5 years ago, Pete Sturgis got asked to lead the 5 to 11 piece of work, which was come up with some principles and some considerations and some ideas for work in the foundation phase, which obviously aligned to our England DNA. So Pete did that, launched online resource on Hive 2 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, it's about that now,
2 years ago. And also, as people watching this, I'm sure aware, has been on a bit of a roadshow around the country. Doing some CPD events and showing some ideas. So that was that. And then about 2 years ago, I think it was, I got asked to lead the 12 to 16, sort of follow on from Pete, really, with a remit of trying to link with the national team's DNA and building on from the foundation phase DNA. So the remit from Dan Ashworth was quite simply just see the stuff that Sturgis done. You just do that for the 12 16. So a nice easy job, but so that's where it started. So probably the first year was trying to gather information and see what we've got. Because I think the last thing we needed in some ways was like any new terminology, any new stuff. I think it's really important to not neglect the things that good principles. Is almost trying to think my own mind of what are the timeless to start with. I mean, it's not about dismissing modern trends and modern learning and all that, but just what are the timeless principles of good coaching that have always been good coaching and probably, hopefully, always will be good coaching. So it's trying to get to that and understanding there's been a lot of great work done, both at the FA and in this country and around the world, around coaching in this age group across sports and coaching and football. So the first thing I did when I got asked to do it was speak to a guy called Craig Simmons.
Yep.
So Craig's a guy for people. I'm guessing most people probably won't know Craig because he's always in the shadows. He's always in the background. It's often sort of like the brains behind the scenes, I guess. The one-man think tank. So I was lucky enough, obviously working in the FA for so long, to get to know Craig really well. But Craig retired in 4 years ago.
Yeah, about that.
So Craig retired, but anyway, I give him a call and said, I'm doing this. Can I just, don't got any advice, can come with me. So I went to his house for a coffee. So that's the first real thing I did was go and meet Craig. And for those who don't know Craig, he worked for the FA for about 30 years. He used to work in the national school, Little Show, and had a national. He with the likes of Andy Cale and others, but I think mainly from Craig came the four corner model.
Yeah.
And I think it first started getting used in coach education around the year 2000-ish, maybe a bit before. But then there was a youth coaches course that came when the academies came in. Really, I guess around trying to get some age appropriate considerations for coaches. So we had the pathway for level 1, level 2 UEFA B A license at that point, but then was trying to come up with some age appropriate considerations to supplement that for coaches working. So because of experience and because of the research and taking, there's a lot of thinking back then around the four corner model. That was what we went with at the FA. And it's been a real cornerstone of everything we've done since. Rightly. There's different models, like anything in any walk. There's different. You can have different people question terminology, all that stuff. But the idea really was to try and help coaches understand the kids that we coach more holistically and understand the importance of holistic development if we want to develop players of the future as well as developing people as this is the role in sport. So yeah, so I wanted to speak to Craig and had a coffee at his house. And like 5 hours later,
I was going to say, I wish you'd recorded that one.
Yeah, 5 hours later, I left with my head spinning, realising I know nothing about life. So it was great. But the one real bit of advice that stuck, which I think is probably relevant for everyone, was he said, the better you become, the better it will be. So basically saying you need to up your game here. You need to if you're going to be leading this project, you need to get better as well. You want it to be better.
At what?
At just knowledge, and it wasn't anything specific. It was just around reflecting yourself, where your gaps, who do you need support from, what are the areas you're strong, what are the areas you're not so strong, who are the people that can help, who are the mentors that you might need. He didn't say all that, but this is what I took from it. That's why I went to Craig thinking, well, actually, he's done this stuff for the last 30 years. Why would you not tap into that? Craig did. He was a year course, and when it was covered and brought out files of stuff that it's just brilliant stuff that's still relevant now. Around understanding the stage of development the kids are at, especially 12 to 16. And I think one of Craig's big things was highlighting the importance of growth and maturation and development across all four corners, and that it's really is an integrated, blended model that it doesn't happen in isolation. Development doesn't happen in isolation. If a kid grows, it'll have implications in the corners. Not necessarily got to isolate it to work. You might do for certain things at certain times, but one of the challenges of the four corners at any model is, I think, it comes a bit from academics that they talk about a lot, is I always believe that if you want to know about something, get to the source of it. And like Craig was the source of that thinking around four corners.
Yeah.
And I think at times we talk about it as a model and forget we're talking about people. We're talking about youngsters, we're talking about humans. So whether it's social or psycho, we're talking about people. And we need to figure out who are these kids that we're coaching and where they are in their development. So that was really enlightening. And I think what I quickly realised was what my role was, and it was to try and be a bit of a filter for all the stuff we've got, because we've got that much stuff. It's just trying to shine light on the things that are most important in this age group, really, and trying to get around all the experience and knowledge that we've got to try and filter that and get people's opinion. And so the first year probably after that was I met Craig, I think 4 times since. Obviously, we've been retired. I don't want to, do you know what I mean? Over sort of overstay me welcome with that. But yeah, every time I ask, he's yeah, of course, we'll meet up. So Craig's been someone I've spoken to. Obviously, I've been lucky in terms of I've met Tony Carm, the old coach at West Ham, because of the things that I think I got from Tony myself and as a player, and his experience of working. So I've asked people that have maybe retired but been I spoke with Dave Parnaby, had a coffee with Dave, people like that have been involved in youth development for a long time. Also spoke to people from different grassroots clubs, in the boys and girls game, just a variety of people, as well as our own staff and as well as some people in the academic world, and some really like not that, just grabbing a coffee or spending a lot of time in St George's trying to just like grab people and by the way, I've got a question, and then like an hour later, and then like any chance of us leaving type thing. But yeah, just picking the brains of people to try and make sure that, because I think it's quite hard. It's really the hardest thing is to be simple at times. And so one example, so one of the key things that we talk about was that we need to get other players that we're coaching, which everyone said forever, and it's one of the hardest things to do. It's not easy to get to know the players. How do you do that? And what do you want to get to know? What do you need to know? There is stuff you see, there's some stuff you don't see. There'll be some stuff that you can guess, but you don't really. So getting to know your players, you can't just do it.
It takes years.
It takes years, and it changes, and they change. And so something like that, it can't become a throwaway comment.
No.
It's far too important for that.
So how? I guess it's just how do you do that?
How do you get to know the players?
For a man there listening to this, and you know the importance of it, but what's the?
I think there's just things around building a rapport and connection with the players. We're getting the balance right, but you're the coach. You're not there to be the friend. So having the right type of boundaries, but getting the sort of social context right, getting the relationships and getting the feeling of the players that you can get to know them. Observation's key. Conversations around football, about getting them away from football, about asking how the day's been, or about noticing who they're friends with, noticing how they behave, noticing what they tend to do. Stuff we talk about with people, observation, on and off the pitch, but sort of ongoing communication, I guess. Trying to make them feel comfortable with you being around is one thing in this age group, especially because when the kids change, the relationship with adults changes in this age group. When they're in the foundation phase, the parents are real important. Parents are still really important, by the way, I'm not saying that, but parents are a really important reference. As they get older, they're sort of, I guess, in some ways detached from parents as they grow, some more than others and all that stuff, but they become more independent, I guess, and that's just nature taking its course as much as anything. When they sort of enter this phase, they really are kids, and they're still kids, but they leave a lot closer to being adults at 16. They're ready for the in a football world, in academies, they're ready to become full-time scholars in life. They're going into college or apprenticeships. And they're certainly making some key life decisions, and GCSEs are finished and as they leave this phase. So it's such a broad phase. But they come in, as I say, and as they go through, they become more independent. So the relationship with adults changes, but often a coach can be a real important and positive and definitely powerful role model in their life. I can't underestimate the role of the coach in terms of the impact it can have. So even the fact for grassroots coaches out there, for all coaches, I guess, is just turning up and being there for people every week.
That's the word I was going to add, was the consistent role models.
Consistent role models are huge, and consistent boundaries. And so one of the terms we'll get to in a bit is around playing with freedom, but that's not just any. It's within the boundaries, within the structure, within the framework that you set, both in terms of football tactically, but socially around. This is expectations. These are the boundaries that we work within here. So being a positive role model is key, and just even think about it. I know we use it a lot, but think about the teachers, people, adults that are important. You think, well, we were that age. When we were 12, when we were 14, when we were 16, who was important to us? What did we need from them? Those people, who were the teachers that stood out and why? What was it about them that made them the people that you now remember? So adults still have a really important part of their life. It's the peer group, and the strength and the impact of the peer group grows generally, and changes. And as the kids get older, things like if they don't want to play, they'll just decide not to play. They'll decide. So parents can still have an input and a say, and they will have, but kids will be often make their own choices. So it's getting to know the players. It's not easy. What I would say is just understand when we get this content online, understanding around growth and maturation, around growth spurts, around what stage that they might be at, around the support they might need, around understanding what they might be going through, understanding that if you work with under 12s, they might change schools, going to a big school, the social dynamics of their lives changes. So you might see that in the football, they might have different friendship groups even within the team. Some stuff might change around that time. Then when they go 13s and 11 aside, there's some change. There's a lot of change. It really is the changing years, I guess. So there's going to be a lot of change.
The only time with the group of boys I coached that had any sort of behavioural issues was in the September to October half term of under 12s.
Yeah.
Because it was high school. It was the start of high school. And a number of different schools finding their way in a new peer group, pecking order.
Yeah.
And that brought about, it was something I wasn't really prepared for, but it's certainly something I learned a lot from.
Yeah. And it can have a big impact. Kids often want to change teams because they might move areas. There's lots of change at that time, depending on the school system in that area. For other kids, there might be a middle school system, not as common, but that might come later. But just understand, considering where the kids are at in their lives, who are the kids, because that will have an impact. You can't control it. We're not asking you to control it. Just if you've got an awareness of it, and then if you can control things, you can try and control the experience and the environment that you set. You can control that, but just being recognizing that there's other stuff at play, I guess, when you're working with kids, especially in this age group. The other things in this age group, where I'm getting to know them, it'll be just personality types and like who they are. And so it's a real period of risk taking generally for the kids.
Is that
discovery
due to hormones,
testosterone, brain development? There's lots of stuff at play.
Yeah.
A lot of change.
But how does that then manifest itself in football? Are we talking risk as in trying to beat a player, putting the ball at risk and losing it, or are we talking risk as in things might boil over? I'm maybe more likely to square up to an opponent, and
both, all that. What is really important is that if we can try and channel that risk taken in a positive way, it's a really powerful sort of learning disposition behaviour. If we maximise it, it's a great opportunity for them to test boundaries.
How might that play out practically then?
So even in terms of, if we think football, just around their game, there are a couple of things with it around seeing how things work, taking risk with the ball in terms of trying to take players on, trying to do different things, trying to do things that they might normally do. Might be a centre-back dribbling out from the back, whatever. So there might be some things there, or they might just try things. The other thing that's going to be going on is aligned to that is that they're going to be changing. The body's going to change, so their capabilities will change with them. So they need to explore that. So an obvious one might be as they grow and sort of muscles develop, if you like, then the range of pass might develop with it. So then they're capable then of playing a 40-yard pass, where previous to growth, then maybe 20 yards might have been the max. So actually the possibility, the tactical possibilities change. So we need to try and help them explore that and see what they're capable of, and see if they can develop some of those skills. And defenders can play passes into midfield, but can maybe play a direct switch, whatever. So that's just one example. But but it's all with that comes with a bit of risk, that they need to test the capabilities. It's like testing. They want to test. You mentioned it before. They want to feel that test. They want to, almost, it's like an experimentation time in all aspects of their life, and want to channel that in football so they can test their own boundaries and develop. And part of the challenges comes with the behavioural stuff around it.
So managing when things don't go right.
Managing, and it'll boil up. They'll maybe test what the boundaries are. They'll test you as a coach. They'll want to test what are the norms, what can I get away with. Sometimes in a way which is okay, and we want them to sort of test it. It's just natural. It's natural that they do. It's a good thing because they're testing boundaries. But then if it overspills, then we need to be clear about what the boundaries are. When it becomes unsafe, when it becomes disrespectful, then it becomes an issue that needs dealt with. And you might need to be the person that deals with it. And certainly if it happens in your context, in the setting of training that night, then you might need to deal with some stuff. But I think one of the things in this age, you might not get the thanks for some of the work that you put in to helping the kids, but maybe you will in 10 years.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Maybe you will in 10 years when they think, you know what, that person was, it might be that they taught you how to play the position to help them with the football, or might be the person that kept you on the straight and narrow, that when other people are giving up on you, that stick with you, or when other people hadn't given you the time, or it might be that you're that person that or show them a different way, or a better way, or a way of behaving. So it's not easy coaching in this age group. Whatever setting you're working in, it's a testing time for it. But also, I think one of the things around it is some of these behaviours. It's not the kids intentionally being naughty or making. They don't set out to think, I'm going to make life hell for this person, this coach. Often it's not personal. It's just where the stage you're at and the stuff they're going through. So it's just around almost understanding that any of us coaching in this age group are going to face these challenges, and not just think it's you that's dealing with it. It's challenging for everyone, and also understand that it might not. It's probably not personal. No, and what I found, I think you're right. It's not easy. It is challenging, but personally, I think, and every team, every player, every adolescent is unique, and so I was really careful not to kind of generalize. Yeah. What I found this season has been the most rewarding season in my life in terms of coaching, as far as seeing the progress of a group of boys coming to young men, the way that they conduct themselves as people, the way that they try and play football. So yes, it's challenging, but also so rewarding when it clicks. And so I think, and you talked before about the diet of practice that you exposed, or the experiences that the players are exposed to, and it reminded me of again something that Paul Holder used to talk to us about, was about the right practice for the right player at the right time. Yeah, and it was something I've done with the lads earlier this season, and they've got to a place football wise where they're really comfortable on the ball, but maybe struggle to penetrate the opposition because largely due to physical differences. But we just started to explore penetration in terms of individual and team, but focus mainly on individual first.
And so you talked about constraints before. It just started, and this was about 6 weeks that we worked on this sort of stuff. And the danger here for anyone listening or watching is don't copy and paste. This in all my years of coaching, I've never seen a condition or a practice just click with such a group of players at the right time. Complete fluke. But we started with the condition of a restriction. Every time you receive the ball, your first touch must go forwards. So just to get into the start exploring some creative ideas, and of course there was loads and loads of free kicks early on. It was total car crash and messy. Yeah. But after 5 or 10 minutes, what I saw was, from a group of 14 and 15-year-olds, it absolutely blew me away that the amount of creativity and ways that they found to get around this challenge that I had posed them.
Yeah.
And then what we started to build in things like, okay, you can go backwards, but it must be on your first touch. So in other words, so how are you going to support the player who's receiving the ball? If I'm playing the ball into you, if I know that you can only go backwards on your first touch, or you've got to go forwards on your first touch, how does that influence the pass that I then play to you as a teammate? And then we started to think about all these, playing out these different questions, and then we started looking at it. Well, where in the pitch would we want that to happen? Okay, maybe higher up the pitch, maybe in midfield areas. So just started, and for about 6 weeks, we just played around with these conditions to the extent where we left it for a bit. I think we'd had like Easter or half term or something. We come back, and the lads were like, "Can we have a game?" At the end of training, it's like, "Can we have a game?" Yeah, of course. And it was like, "Can we do that first touch condition, first touch forwards?" I said, "Well, so you'd rather play that than a normal game?" Yeah. So with this group of players, they've latched on to something that they feel challenges them, and they've now, not always, but often they'll go, they'll impose that condition on themselves just because they like the way that what it brings out in them, in the different ways that I guess it's like risk.
Absolutely, it's one of the constraints I used on the roadshow events for the 12 to 16s. We did a bit with the staff at St George's around that. Because one of the things with a constraint such as that is there's lots of that. I'm not saying this is the only one to use, but to be able to take your first touch forward requires different things. So in academic land, we talk about perception, action, coupling, and we talked a bit before about when we talk about staying on the ball. It doesn't happen in isolation. So to be able, there's different ways to be able to take your first touch forward. It might be, if you're marked, then you might have to find a skillful solution to maybe take your first touch past the defender, or it might be that you can actually get faced and get turned within that little tiny bit of space you've got. So you're taking your touch in a way to then face up the defender to beat them. Or if that's not for you, or you might actually prepare some space to be able to make a run to get it, to lose your marker. So that might be sort of brushing over some of this, but then to be able to take your first touch forward, an alternative, I guess, is to lose your mark and be in a position where you can be free, so you've got the space to take your first touch. So then that might require some preparation before the ball comes, that you can actually be in a position to take your first touch forward. So that just that challenge, it requires some thinking, I guess. Yeah, and that's the bit, and I think in this age group for me is probably over generalizing, where we really want to help them think around in the game, and almost game understanding, game sense in the game. So it's all right. We talk understanding of the game, I guess, but understanding in the game, and understanding whether we're a striker or fullback, or before the ball comes, then what's in the mind, and the best players will almost start planning some of that, and then it becomes important from staying on the ball. Is if I'm playing with you and I know that I can totally trust you with the ball, and I know that you can stay on the ball as long as you need to for whatever you're going to choose to do, I can then start preparing myself to receive, and I can start preparing my space, knowing that you can stay on the ball, and then you can play the ball at me when the time's right. We've got that connection between us. where if you're fighting the ball and you're not looking at me, and then it's all reactive. Everything's reactive, and then the ball's coming and there's defending. You're not prepared. It doesn't always work this cleanly. It's almost, but if you've got that idea of before, so we talk about scanning, and that's part of it. But it's important to help players understand what they're looking for, what they're looking at. They're looking for their spaces, their teammates, and so we say check the shoulder, but what they're checking for. It's important to help them understand what they're checking for. That they're checking for the spaces, or for the defenders, or for the players. So you're getting a picture. Really, all it is to try and get as good a picture of the game as you can.
And I think the catalyst for that, those practices that I was playing around with, was the day that we spent at St George's.
Yeah,
I don't know, was it before Christmas maybe, or this side of Christmas?
Yeah, it was this side of March.
And we must have spent an hour or more just talking about receiving skills.
Yeah,
and it was great to just talk football in that depth. And you're just thinking about, let's just take a typical midfield player that receives the ball off anyone in the defensive line.
Yeah.
So what's the angle that the pass is coming in from? What's the speed that it's coming in from? What's the height that it's coming in from?
Yeah.
Is it coming in with sort of spin on it? So how is the ball moving?
Yeah.
And then so you've got all that stuff that's going on before.
Yeah.
And then you've got to take in the perceptual information around what's my body position, where are my teammates, who's around me, what's the threat to the ball, where's it coming from, what's the speed of that threat, where's it going to go next, and all this information,
all that's at play,
before the ball even gets to you.
Yeah. And I think just conscious whether people listen, we're not trying to complicate the game. It's just this stuff's at play. This is going to be happening. So regardless of any situation, there's going to be some variables going on around them. You might get the ball one time, and as you say, the smooth pass that's quite nice at a slow pace that's coming to you, or the next time you get a pass might be from a different distance, and it might be bobbling, and it might be slightly off target, and you've got to adjust your body to receive. So these things, that's just football, that's stuff just happening. So we need to help kids practice some of that, because I was saying before about receiving and taking first touch forward. If you can receive well, similar, if you can stay on the ball, then it helps, gives you far greater possibilities of what you can do at the end of it. The same with receiving. If you can receive well, really well, then the possibilities then become greater beyond that. So if you're striking and you're receiving the box in a way that if you can receive and take a touch and get a shot off, the difference between having to receive and think, what am I going to do, and the chance is gone. Or you might be defending, receiving to try and step into the space, and if there's a big gap in front of you, so you might take your touch and take some. So this whole receiving skills are important for goalkeepers. And, so it's one of the just core things. It's always been important. It was interesting around receiving. I was jumping about a bit, but I know Gareth Southgate's highlighted one of the things that I would like to try and keep improving in terms of receiving skills going forward. But the Future Game Book, which is a great book, and if anyone gets a chance to get it and you haven't got it, get it. It's
sure, there's PDFs out there as well.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there is. Yeah, but in the intro, Trevor Brooken wrote, I think it was 2010.
Yeah, it was.
We need to improve receiving skills. So it's not claiming that this is a new idea. I think what we do need to do is really pay attention and focus on it. We keep saying we need to improve it, but it's that thing, we keep doing the same stuff and we don't focus on it.
I thought I'd tell you to do not disturb. There we go. Receiving skills.
Yeah, so if we don't focus on it and we don't do, then can't expect players to really, really get better at it. And there's lots of, I say, the receiving, it's not just the mechanics, it's in relation to the pictures. So the best players get the best pictures, to get the best ideas of what's going on around them. So part of that is to do with how well they scan, but it's not just the action of moving their head, they'll scan lots, but they'll be looking and searching and looking for where the players are, where the spaces are. And even as the ball moves and they move, they'll be doing that. Now, some of that's quite advanced, but we need to start that somewhere.
And yeah, I think what I've found from watching players in practices for years and years and years now is that it's difficult to develop those perceptual skills in isolated practices when you can't just tell a player check your shoulder when there's nothing to check for. There's no
Right.
threat. And when I mean threat, I don't necessarily mean I'm going to come and steal the ball off you. It might be that somebody's just in your way.
Yeah.
But that, you know, in a practice that is, you know, where there's just some kind of interference.
Yeah.
And this is because I watched. We were working with some kids on level 1 that I'm delivering at the moment. We did some individual, and they were what age were they? 8 to 9, I think. And we just sent them out. Some of the coaches delivered some stuff, and it was kind of there was some dribbling work, but in isolation. And then it was like, right, just watch the head, because the head automatically drops to the floor.
Yeah.
Okay. But then when you start to put the players into a situation where they might bump into somebody else, so you kind of just you mess up the traffic, if you like. Absolutely. Rather than being isolated.
Yeah.
Right, now watch the head, and the head starts to lift.
Yeah.
And the sooner that we could, or the more that we can encourage that and get them looking not at the ball but beyond the ball.
Yeah.
You know, I guess it's similar. I'm talking about staying on the ball here, but we're talking about receiving skills.
But that's perception action couple, and that is that in action. It's the idea that you perceive the act. What you do with in terms of the skills are in relation to the picture. So even if we're talking about staying on the ball, if I'm going to take you on, it's not just the mechanic. It's I'm going to try and shift you one way to go the other. Or it depends on the space is behind you. It depends on this whole little mini picture, a little mini sort of force field, if I between. Do you know what I mean? If it's a 1v1 duel, then so we've got to help. And it might be 1v1 duel to receive. So I'm preparing. So I'm going to take you out of the space, knowing that I'm going to leave some space to we talk about like double movements in coaching for years around that you might make one run, so like a winger, so you run away to come short. So the whole idea is preparing space, really. So you know the space is there, so you're going to go that way to come and get the ball. So you've prepared the space ready for the ball coming. So it's all just this, but that's in relation to the person on the ball. So just in terms of where receiving fits in and why we're focusing on receiving is one of the key things. And it's not the only thing I've seen in this age group, but is if players can stay on the ball, we understand that they're really good at that. Then, as I said before, then if the first person who's receiving, regardless of where it is on the pitch, if I know that you're comfortable on the ball and in control, and because you're that in control, you can lift your head, you can see the game whilst you're on the ball, then I can start getting in good positions, ready to receive the ball in as best position as I can. And then it's about the connection and the timing between when do you pass it, where. But all that's in relation to what's going on the pitch, and every situation will be slightly different. So we need to help players to understand some of that. And you can't just. That's where we talk about affordances, and a couple of go on Twitter and have a little look at Rick Shuttleworth. Paul McGuinness has done some football stuff around it recently. Got Mark Upton, Mark Sullivan. And then academic. There's people like Keith Davids, people like Mark Williams. And there's loads around skill acquisition and anticipation, decision making. It's in any sport. It's in relation to the circumstance and in the scenario that you're in, and that's why the best players often. So, an example might be if you take a real top player like Xavi, if you take passing for instance, he might play a 5-yard pass that anyone could play. We could play now. Technique of it is a 5-yard pass. But depending on the pressure in the picture, he might take 3 players out of the game. And seeing it and being able to do it in that moment when there's pressure and you're marking, that's the difference. And it's in relation to the picture and what players are seeing in the head. So, or strikers when they have that instinct to run across the near post when others don't. And Michael Owen should do that, like, score lots of goals. Well, why is he different? Why does he do that? So that's where we're trying to get to, and that's the reason why we can help players get really good on the ball and help players understand, help them with the skills and the understanding to receive the ball. And then you can start talking about the sort of the pass appreciation and how it combine well. And then help players understand, if you're passing to me, what's the role of the next player in relation to that? Then you can get into the real team tactics around what's your role in the 4-3-3. That sort of comes next.
And that's what I found in my own coaching with the lads, is that even at this age, there's still so much individual work to be done before you can start worrying about the tactics of a 4-3-3 or 3-5-2.
And I think it's just part of when you say that, people think you've got to work in isolation. We're not talking. We're not talking about that at all. I'm just talking about just looking at almost having the lens on each individual, thinking how they're getting on, and they need to practice it in game-like situations to build up almost the catalogue, if that's the right word, accumulated experiences. They could build up the catalogue of. So they've got that. They've recognised they've been here before. They recognise the patterns. They recognise the situation. So that's why small-sided games are important and game-like activities, because they need to practice some of that.
But you're talking about experiences again. I think there's a question that often comes up with coaches and mums and dads is positions, and there's no set answer. But the way I kind of find it in my mind is that by the time, like we said, it's a late specialisation sport, but if we can, by the time that they've reached adolescence, before they've gone through the growth spurt, or even after it, have they had an opportunity to play in wide areas, in middle areas, in the thirds of the pitch?
Yeah.
Have they sampled that before specialising and giving them the opportunity? I think personally, it's really important that as many players as possible get the chance to experience what it's like in the middle of midfield, because it's the only position where you get 360.
You get the 360. I think part of it as they get older, it might be that you have less, that they still might play different positions, but maybe less. And also with how it's done, so it's not just like a scattergun approach where there's just a bit of everything. It might be play here for a few weeks, so you get used to it, you can reflect and get used to the position, and then maybe for another spell where if you just everyone plays like 4 positions a week, and it's just the kids. But
it's not. It's no hard and fast rule.
Absolutely.
There's some that I've coached before that are quite happily play any position any week, just want to be on the pitch, deal with it. Whereas some others, it's like, I've had 6. I'm really, really struggling to go anywhere out of my comfort zone, out of this position. And that might be for fear of failure, it might be for putting the group before my own needs, that sort of thing. But I think it's important to have those conversations that, look, if this is something that you want to, if you want to develop players, have that conversation that, in time. It doesn't have to be today or tomorrow or next week, but it would be good for you to have some sampling experience.
I think one of the challenges with coaching is you've got to make decisions as a coach around. That's a key. It's one of the key things of coaching, where you've got to who are your kids, where they're at, and deciding what do they need in it. We won't always get it right, but thinking about what you're trying to do. And there's loads of stuff out there. Dave Collins, Andy Abraham have done some stuff around coaches' decision making. There's lots of stuff out there, but it's absolutely one of the things is it does depend on the circumstance and your setting, on the kids that you coach, and you yourself and as a coach. But there are some things around the age that the kids are at that might, of having conversations with players to see why they're playing, what they want from the experience. It'll inform some of those decisions. I think the other thing is just going back a bit on the receiving, really conscious that because we're focusing on receiving and saying that we need to help them as individuals with the game still at this age, and that there's some things like receiving that they might not be ready for some of the tactical thinking that comes with it, some of the sort of high level thinking until this age group. I'm not saying that you should never do any team shape, or you might do something. It's just getting the balance right and understanding that can't neglect some of these. So the kids need a balance of real informal play. They need some practice. Again, deciding on who your kids are, where they're at, and what they need, and then getting the variety of activities and games. And it's all part of the same sort of mix, I guess. And it's part of our job to try and decide, figure out what's best for the group of kids that you're working with. But what's part of the challenges with this is wherever you show doing the road trip, if you show one thing, people think that's it, that's only it, and it's just one part of it. And the reason we're doing that in the road show is just because we almost feel it's been neglected a little bit, or maybe we could look at it differently or help the players, because as you say, if players can receive take the first touch forward or receiving away to play forward, then the possibilities of the game, the team tactics change. If midfielders can turn and play forward, then all of a sudden forwards can make different runs. And it opens up the game. Where if they take the touch safe or back every time, then it invites the pressure from the team. It changes the game. So it's one of the, or whether they defend, whatever position they're at, it can help. So we do want to almost shine light on that, but also we still need to work on defending sometimes. We still need to work on passing. We still need to work on the role in the team. So yeah, it's just getting the balance in the mix, I think. But what is important is just not too team focused in terms of team strategy too soon, or that's not all that's done. There's a real focus on the individuals and what they need to get better.
Yeah. So what you talked earlier about content, and we talked about the boot room already. What's coming down the pipe?
Yes, basically we're developing some online stuff, just really to share some ideas and some considerations around coaching in this age group. There'll be some stuff linked to the 5 pillars and some stuff on the 4 corners. I guess the 5 pillar stuff around how we play, how we coach, and principles to think about. Some of our beliefs at the FA, and the 4 corner stuff really around trying to shine light on some of the things that your kids might be going through. That's handy to know, so that we can tailor our coaching accordingly. So if kids are going through growth spurts, then we'll have some stuff around that. So just some information, some stuff to consider, maybe some solutions of how we help them nurture the kids through that.
I think it'd be really useful.
And some stuff on the social corner around how behaviours change and who the kids are and some of the stages go through. The psych development, how the brain develops, and some stuff around decision making and what's important for them as they grow and the game gets bigger. How do they deal with that, and how do they manage their emotions? So there'll be some bits on that. There'll be some tactical ideas around how to stay on the ball and connect and come by and receiving, and also 1v1 defending. Some things around 1v1 defending. There'll be obviously some session ideas coming. There'll be a range of stuff, I guess, as well as the roadshows that I'll be doing. But I think it's just the key things really is. So we've talked about lots and some of the detail, but it's their game. The kids that we coach, it's their game. The kids will always be grateful in the end for the time and the commitment that we give as coaches, especially in the volunteer world, and can't ever underestimate that. And the role that you play is vital. It can have a real impact in shaping them and how they develop as people and players, not just now, but into adulthood. It's a really formative period in the kids' lives. So reinforcing good behaviours, reinforcing what we believe is good standards, understanding that's vital. And again, some we can't take for granted. Developing a love of the ball and love of the game, and the kids, they're still kids. And although especially at 15, 16, they wouldn't want to be called kids. No. They want to be seen as adults. They're still children. They're still at school. They're still developing. They still need support and nurture, and they still need us. But they need us to sort of believe in them. But they still need to have that love of the ball and love of the game, because that might just keep them in the game, keep them playing. And we say it a lot, but really have a real deep love of the ball. If the ball about, they want to play with it. Have that in them. We need to keep that. It's vital. But also, it's not just a fluffy thing. They'll want to practice and they want to get better. They've got that. They've got that in them.
And I guess that's where our behaviours will tell them what we value. So I'll freely admit, I lost my temper for the first time at a youth game that I was involved in. It was a friendly only a couple of weeks ago, and scenario was player held onto the ball a little bit too long, gave it away. The other team had run through and scored. Okay, and so that's fine. I can deal with that. No, because I'm asking them to stay on the ball, and then I thought this was going to happen. And the next time the ball came to the player, under no pressure whatsoever, it was just booted out of play. and then that was it. Then it was kind of like a preempted snap, but yeah, and it was probably it was a bark, shall I say? But I wanted to make a point that actually don't we trust you on the ball, look after it.
That's not acceptable.
And that's not what I value and what we value. We want to look after the ball and love the ball.
Yeah.
So I could see it coming a mile away, and I thought I'm going to have to deal with this. Yeah. But then I guess the most important part was at half time. It's like, right, we still mates.
Yeah.
We can do that again. Now, all right, we have a bit of a laugh and a joke about it, but yeah.
But it's all part of that context that you're in and that you create, isn't it? But it's vital that having that, developing that, and not like taking it for granted, and not doing anything at the expense of that, but then really love the game that the kids have got.
And my snap only came about because I know that person can do better, and I want what's best for them.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's, kids need some guidance, and they need some boundaries at times, and the thing with it, the kids are going to be developing as people and developing as players, and what they need from us slightly, like you said, they need support and challenge. What that looks like and feels like might change slightly. Competition might feel different, and they might need different things from competition as they get older. Some kids won't. Often one of the reasons for dropout is competition. That's not framed right for the kids. They don't want it. It's too much. It's too pressurized. But then one of the reasons kids keep playing is for competition. And thriving. If we get it right, if we frame competition right for them, that they can be successful. And winning is one factor in that, but then there's other success criteria, other things that they can do well. And frame competition right for the group of kids you've got, then it's vital. But they're going to be developing as people regardless. They're going to grow. They don't decide, I'm going to have a growth spurt today. We can't control that. What we can control is how we then nurture them through it. And it might be that they have a different role in training this week, or a different role in the team because they can't run as much. They might play less for that period, or they might play in a different position where they were a striker on the channels and they play as number 10, so they're not through that period of growth, so they're not physically having to cover as much ground. Or there's different things we can do, but they're going to be developing, they're going to be changing as kids, they're going to be growing, they're going to be testing boundaries. It might be the identity is going to be a big thing for them, and who are they themselves, almost finding themselves in relation to the mates, different peer groups, social stuff. There's lots going on. They're going to be developing. They're going to be developing as players. So as that stuff's happening, and as they grow and mature, then they're going to be able to make clearer decisions, and they're going to be able to see space and articulate some of that stuff more. They're going to, and because of that, they'll be ready for some tactical bits, but that they might not be ready for the team strategy stuff straight away. But understanding the role to get away from a defender, or to take a defender one way to go another way, those sort of mini tactics, if you like, we need to help them with that, with and without the ball in and out of possession. But ultimately, I think the experience will be what defines what they get from sport, from football. And it needs to be inclusive in that, meaning that kids need to be able to be themselves as kids and as players, that they can feel and be valued for being themselves. It's crucial across all four corners, which is really crucial. So we've got a real role to play in that. To do that, I guess, the environment's still key. I say still, it's Gareth Southgate talks a lot about that and Phil Neville's recently talked loads about that around the national teams, the senior teams, around environment being crucial. And Pete's talked about it for years, as lots of other people have, and we'll do tonight, about the importance of the environment for the youngest kids, but it's still really important for the 12, 16-year-olds to be able to play and practice in a really positive environment where they can take risks, they can challenge, they can be themselves, they can learn, they can explore. It's vital for them with a big part of that support and challenge in the right amount. We need the right diet of like play, practice, and competition, the right variety and formats of competition. But they've got to develop as individuals. So yes, they're playing, we want to help them understand their role in the team and be good team players, but we need to help them develop as individuals, as people and players, and focus on that and not be too, not that the team not important, not saying that, but not be totally team orientated too soon, that then we need to help them, because we don't know where they're going to go. We don't know what the rest of their journey is going to be. We don't know what position they're going to play. We don't know how they're going to. We don't know what they might turn into. If that. So we just need to help them develop and grow. But wrap around it's something, especially in this age group, I think what we do really need to shift to playing with freedom. That they've got that we don't just put limitations on the kids in terms of the way they play. At defenders, just get rid of it, because we're playing under 11 and serious, and defenders, the ball's coming in the end, instead of heading out for a corner or a throw, and that they bring it down and play. And goalies can play out across different ranges and different types of passes, and players to the centre backs, and I drop it into a wide player, or drop it into the striker, or the number 10's chest, or so all still playing out, but it's with idea and care and quality, and all around the pitch. So we've got this idea of kids do things with the ball, can experiment, explore, make good decisions, but not boring, safe decisions that pass back or play safe, that they can test the boundaries in the game and take people on and play passes past people, and play passes around the corner and over and around, and have that type of feeling and mindset that there's some intelligence and some curiosity in the game. It's vital for them. Too often we just say pass, and everyone's anxious, and ball goes there and comes back, and then they lose it and run back. It just becomes like this game of running and tackling, and which is all really important, because we need to develop that. Anytime someone does give it away, there's a real hunger to go and get it back, and we need to help them. Similar to what we're talking about in possession, we need to help them as the first defender, if they're closing down. Before we teach them how to play in a 4-3-3, for example, in a way, they need to be able to close down and understand to get there really quick and slow down, and then if they're doing that, what does the mate do? So some of the principles around defending, with all the modern trends, and we can't forget about some of the core.
No.
And it's not that we should all just do that. And again, but we need to just help them with the game, and so they've got that in them. They've got that feeling of football, I guess. And
it goes back to what you were saying before about not reinventing the wheel and respecting the good stuff of the past. I know you've been digging through a few old books recently, and I picked up a really good one. I found it free online. It was I'm going to butcher the guy's name here, but you know what I'm talking about. Is it Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who coined the concept of flow?
Right. Okay.
But I found a book that he'd written, I think, in the early 80s around adolescence and the teenage brain.
Right. Okay.
And it is just gold dust. And it's just written in simple to understand language, which is great for me.
Yeah.
And I got absolutely loads. But what you're saying there in the early 80s is still relevant to today.
Just I think what happens sometimes is some subtle bits change, some of the details change, and not just for that, with football as well, or some of the way things are employed change, or some of the but some of the principles are there. We'll just maybe learn a bit more about them, like TGFU and constraints. And, there's lots of things that have been there. There's a train of thought that's been going for a while. Just maybe refine it and revise it. So it's important to stay current, absolutely. So, but it's just to understand where things come from and respecting the past and the principles that the game's a game. It's been a game for a long time. There's some principles to the game and principles of play around penetration, creating space, and movement and support. That's football. That's going to be there. But then how individuals do it, and how do we help them do it, and what that then means in the team, and what different systems then that might change. Some of the principles of understanding. If you understand how to create space for yourself, how to create space for others as a principle, and regardless of what team shape you're in, then you'll be able to figure some of that out. Just understanding what are some of the key things. And
so you said about going to see Craig Simmons and Simo, spent all that time with him, and he said about bettering yourself in terms of getting the most out of this process. So what's different about you now than 18 months ago when you started putting this thing together?
What's different?
What have you learned about yourself?
I think it's been a tough project to work on in a great way, really, really challenging. So just put like perseverance and being willing to do how much I've learned about that, but that's been quite some of the ideas, probably confidence in idea runs stuff past people and thinking, "Do you know what, yeah, I'm not saying it's right, but there's other people on the same train of thought. And then just some area gaps in knowledge around, especially around child development, people, adolescent development, right? Who are the kids? What are they actually going through? And then what does that mean in football? And then what's really right for them? And just some of the, and then actually having the time to really consider it and think and check and challenge and having to present to yourselves. So if I presented to the grassroots coach development team, I presented to all staff technical division, I presented to our mentors a couple of times, presented to the pro game staff, some of them at the FA. Is just it's. I think sometimes you just got to commit to some ideas and some thinking, and I'm not saying it's all going to be right, and it's all going to be new.
No.
Just and then trying to. The process of trying to gather, so it's not my DNA, it's ours. Really, the FA in the game, it's what we think's some things to consider when working in this age group, and that process takes time, I think, to do it. The check and challenge, and to maybe overly conservative at times, not conservative, but yeah, I think all that stuff has been what has helped me learn. To say like I've learned one or two things, I think that's quite hard to answer that. But I think just one of the challenge for all of us is that the reflection and growth is vital. And Craig's thing about becoming better. So there's loads of different areas, like loads of different communication, planning, like project management.
Yeah.
All those types of they're the skills you need to do this, I guess, and just get better at all that stuff.
And this is just the start. It's not the end, is it? It's
No, that's the idea. Yeah.
So is the idea that you're going to kind of do a similar thing to Pete and a little roadshow?
Yeah, so I've done 6 or 7 CPD events now, so yeah. I'll do some more. So we'll just hopefully get some stuff online in July, some content. But then a lot of it's feedback of what's valuable for people.
Yeah.
So coaches often in a slightly different place in this age group compared to the foundation phase. Often they've either coached in this age group a while and stayed coaching in this age group, say like yourself, where it's not you, or say parents have taken the team through. Yeah. So although they're new to this age group, they've coached for a few years now. So it's just trying to figure out what's valuable for people, because that's what the whole thing's about, really. How do I help coaches, and how do us as coaches best help the kids that we coach? And
I guess when this stuff starts to come out, I know how active you are and how kind of approachable you are. It's just an open door policy.
Totally, stuff that works, that doesn't work. There'll be things in what I've said today that people will agree with, disagree with. There'll be some things on reflection even now that I'm clear about, not so clear about. Some things might need video, like some of the stuff I'm receiving might need videos. So just almost that thing of my role, I guess, in this is trying to gather our thoughts, and I've said it a couple of times, to try to help us as a collective help players. There'll be loads of ideas out there, there'll be loads of things, there'll be things we've missed, there'll be things that it's very much a work in progress. But I do believe in the principles, I do believe in some of the ethos, and totally not saying what I'm saying is it's certainly a lot of that. It's not from me. It's from loads and loads of people that have been working on this stuff for a lot of time. You mentioned, we've talked about some people like John Allpress, Paul Holder, influencers like Tony Carr, spoke with people at clubs, like yourself and other people across the FA. It's hopefully just a reflection of all that, I guess. And like I say, it's a continuation of it as much as anything. Of some of it, just then there's that much stuff at times, it's almost just an attempt at getting back. That's the wrong word, but like refocus.
Strip back to what's important.
Yeah, what's really important. Some of the things aren't new, but I would encourage people just to really consider it. So, like, loving the ball, loving the game, get to know the people that you coach. What's the context? What do they need from you as a coach? Who do they need you to be? And then deciding how best to help them, what practices, what do they need to focus on the learning, what practices, hopefully game based, especially if you want to get them once a week, probably a lot of game time. It's still really important. It's been important for a while, and
Absolutely,
it's still important now. So
what you said, July? Have you got any kind
hopefully
of
start of July?
start of July?
The content will be in the boot room.
And it'll go straight onto the boot room as part of
So
FA.com/learning, isn't it?
Yeah, and there'll be a little tab section thing, but I'll be communicating on how best to get on there.
Great.
You're
excited, aren't you?
Yeah, it's quite a bit of stuff waiting just for the website and all that. So yeah, it's been a good bit of work.
Yeah, having had a bit of a sneak preview of some of the content that you put together, I'm really excited about seeing it out there, open to the mass.
Been good fun. Yeah, you can't call it work really. It's fun.
Anything that we've not discussed or not touched on in your notes?
No. I think we're off all day, really, don't we?
We could sit all day, but we've got to go and see Pete work his magic. What do we know? It's about 5:15. So yeah. Graeme,
thanks for having me.
Hope you enjoyed it.
If you're still here with us at this point, I don't know how. But thank you very much.
I knew what I had to do was wind you up and let you go. No, thanks very much for coming in, mate. Really enjoyed it, and it was going to be good to spend a few more hours with you tonight, looking at Pete.
Looking at the master.
Yeah. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, man. Thanks.
Cheers. All right. I'll just go and stop this video. Oh, come on.